If you haven't made your first game yet, you might be wondering, how much does it cost to make a game and what do you actually need to spend money on to develop your game and get it out there in the hands of players? Hi, my name is Auro. I'm a solo indie game developer and I will spoil the answer to the question right away. How much does making a game cost? It varies a lot. There is no specific number or a useful range that would cover all the games. Instead, in this video, I will share how much my first game, Mortal Glory, cost to make, and I will go through everything that you might have to spend your hard-earned money on. Let's get started, shall we? Usually, the biggest cost factor for games is graphics. As with most things, the cost is very dependent on how much of it you intend to create yourself. I am definitely not a talented artist, so while I did make a few things myself, I ended up buying most of the graphical assets or finding them for free. The cost of graphics is also very much affected by what kind of a game you want to make. For example, my game has low resolution pixel art, which is pretty cheap to buy. If you were to make a realistic 3D game, you would be looking at very different prices. Overall, I spent $218 to get pixel art for all the units and their animations seen in the game. Later on, I decided to make a DLC to the game and spent an additional $86 to get pixel art needed for that. These prices are very much in the low end and I am very happy with the quality and what I got for this price. I used Fiverr to get these assets custom made for me. On top of unit graphics, I also spent $119 on other graphics like UI, spell effects, backgrounds, and all sorts of miscellaneous things. These were ready-made assets I bought from Unity Asset Store and other asset stores like it, so they were obviously much cheaper than if they had been custom made. So overall, if you count it all together, I spent $423 on graphics, which can be considered a very low sum. But again, it's good to keep in mind that my graphics costs are low because of the simplistic style of my game. If your game demands detailed custom 3D models or high-resolution 2D art done by a professional, you are easily looking at spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars just on graphics. High-quality art usually does not come cheap. Then, let's move on to audio. Once again, I'm not to be trusted for creating original audio myself unless quality is not a concern. Zoom. So I didn't even attempt to create any of the audio myself. Everything audio related I got from asset stores and I ended up paying $90 for it. Most of this is for the sound effects used in the game. The asset packs contain a lot of different sound effects, so these are something I will easily be able to use for my future games also. The good thing with audio is that the same audio assets can be used for any kind of game. Audio assets are also usually very cheap unless you get them custom made. I didn't end up paying almost anything for the music used in the game, as I found that there's a lot of free music available to choose from. With all the free options available, I was able to pick and choose the tracks I thought sounded great and fit the atmosphere of the game. Getting a custom soundtrack for your game is a cool idea and can easily elevate your game, but I think it's more of a luxury item. There's a lot of variation in pricing, but based on some googling, getting a professional composer to create a soundtrack for a game would cost a few $100s per minute of music. If you have the money for it and feel like audio is very important for your game, go for it. But otherwise, I don't think you can go too wrong with the cheap or free ready-made music tracks. Speaking of assets, I also used $27 to get a saving module for my game. I had some issues with it during the development, but still, I think I saved countless hours by using it instead of making my own solution. There are a lot of pre-built modules available that can save you a lot of coding time. In general, I would recommend trying to see if there are well-reviewed modules available for features that you think will take a lot of time to implement. In the best case scenario, you will save tens, if not hundreds of hours. In a worst case scenario, you will use valuable time trying to decipher low quality documentation only to find out that the module actually does not fit your needs. It's definitely something that needs to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. To get my game on Steam, I also had to pay the Steam Direct fee, which is $100. This is something you need to pay for every game you want to get on Steam, but the good thing is that you can get this cost back if your game sells more than $1,000. For marketing purposes, I also paid $59 to get a 1 month of a higher tier membership on an influencer contacting service called Vovit. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I think I got good value for the $59 and I will probably use the service again. Marketing is something you can spend as much money on as you have available. But if you are not made of money or don't have previous experience in optimizing paid ads, I would recommend not spending a lot on marketing. What you actually need is some sort of a marketing plan and a continuous effort to carry out that plan. Money cannot replace these. Without a solid marketing plan, any money you spend is likely going down the drain. Usually, India budgets are not big enough to effectively use that money anyway. Luckily, some of the most effective marketing can be done for free. Of course, it's not easy and it's not an exact science. I will talk more about marketing in another video. That's actually everything I paid for my game before release. If you deduct the DLC graphics cost, which I got well after the release, it's a total of $613 to get the game made and released. Of course, on top of this, I also spent around 1,000 hours of my own time for everything else before release and lots of hours after the release also. Even if your own hours don't come with a price tag, it's good to know that your own time is not really free either. It's all at the expense of doing something else. But if you enjoy making games, maybe you can think of those hours as a cheap hobby or something. After the release, my game started taking off and became much more popular than I was expecting. The sales quickly reached the $1,000 point for me to get the Steam Direct fee back. Because of the game's popularity, I decided localizing the game might be a good idea. Localizing a game can easily get very expensive. The price depends largely on the amount of words you have in your game, what languages you want to localize to, and how good of a service you want. There's a site called ProZ you can use to check the average prices for different language combinations. Most of the prices hover around 10 cents per word based on the site, but you can find translators for a lot cheaper than that. My game had around 11,500 words after release and would later increase to 15,000 with the DLC. For a standard price of 10 cents per word, this would amount to $1,500 for each language. I decided that I did not have that kind of money lying around, so I started looking around for translators with cheaper prices but good customer feedback. In the end, I ended up getting the game translated for 11 additional languages, so with English being the original language, the game is available in 12 different languages. 2 of the new languages I got for free, so I actually paid for 9 of the languages. Overall, this cost me $2,575. With quick math, that amounts to around 2 cents per word. A pretty good deal, I would say. With a few of the languages, there were some quality issues due to the low price, but nothing game-breaking, or maybe I just haven't heard about it yet. Knowing what I know now, my advice would be to pay premium to get good quality translations for your biggest target markets, and for others, try to seek the great value options. You might now be wondering if spending the money on localization was worth it. The short answer is yes. There's a longer answer also, but I have already spent too long talking about localization in this video. Let me know in the comments if you would like to hear more about localization. I have a lot of tips to share if that interests you. That's actually everything I spent money on to make the game. So $3,174 in total. Mortal Glory definitely wasn't an expensive game to develop, especially when you consider that I actually only really spent $513 before release. During development there were some other additional costs also that I did not include here since I consider them the cost of doing business and not directly related to Mortal Glory. These are business fees and taxes, which will depend where your business is located in. Then domain and hosting for your websites. These are quite cheap. I have a website set up for my studio that doesn't get very much traffic, but it's nice to have as a hub that hosts all sorts of information like press kits and also directs people to other relevant platforms. Then there are the costs that enable or improve your development, like equipment, all the devices used during development, laptops, headphones, whatever. Also all the software you use. You can definitely get far without paying anything for software and just using the free ones. I do that mostly, but some things are also worth paying for. For example, I have a subscription to a backup service, so I don't have to stress so much about losing my important files. There are also some general Unity assets I have bought that improve my workflow but are not just for mortal glory. Okay, so that was all the things I spent money on, but what about other potential costs? There are a lot of other costs also that might be relevant to your game that I didn't pay for. Let's quickly go through some of the most common ones. Marketing materials. To get a Steam page up and running, you need many different sizes of graphical assets. I made them by myself, so it didn't cost me anything, but many devs pay for them and I think it's a very smart thing to spend money on. Almost a year after release, I am actually thinking of seeing if marketing material made by a professional would improve my sales considerably. From what I have heard, getting your game logo and Steam material done by a professional artist would cost around $1,000. But again, I think there's lots of variance in prices and quality. Trailer is another thing that is smart to get done by a professional if you can afford it. From what I have read, getting a game trailer done by a professional editor would cost you a few $1,000s or more. Most indies probably don't have this kind of money to throw around when they are starting out. Luckily, the trailer is something that you can do an alright job in by yourself if you stick to some common guidelines. Mainly, skipping all the boring stuff and showing your gameplay very early in the trailer. But of course, a trailer done by a professional will be in its own league and can be something that keeps luring in new customers. When thinking of great trailers, I am always reminded of the trailer for Crypt of the Necrodancer. A trailer like that really sticks with you and gets you excited to try out the game. Moving on, some might want to pay for additional services like testing, community management, or maybe some help with porting the game for other platforms. You can get help for pretty much anything you need, but for small-scale indies, I don't think paying for these is very relevant. If you are planning to get a publisher for your game, they will usually offer to help with these type of tasks. Speaking of porting, if you want to get your game to other platforms than just PC, you might need to pay some platform-specific costs also, whether that's some developer fee or the price of a console dev kit. Finding information about these costs can be hard, as usually people that have paid the price are bound to silence by an NDA that they have signed. Then, if you are making a multiplayer game, be prepared to pay for server costs. During development, you can use your own device as a server, but after that, you will need to get some actual dedicated servers. The cost for this largely depends on how many players your game has. Some indies might also need to spend money on things related to legality, whether that's legal support for contracting or any issues you face for registering a copyright or a trademark, or maybe some licensing deals related to existing intellectual property. I would say again that these costs are not very relevant for small-scale indies, but it can be a different situation for everyone, and I am definitely not a legal expert. That was a lot of potential costs, and I'm sure you can come up with more if you sit down and start to list everything. Going through these, I feel lucky to have finished the game with such a small budget. Hopefully this all was helpful to you and provided some insight how big of a budget you might have to reserve for your own game ideas. I think I might also make a video soon about how to use your budget efficiently. I have some tips to share that I think are very helpful. But that is all I have for this video. See you in the next one.